Hi everyone, welcome to episode 1 of series 1 of Whisky Plank, and it's Nomad Sea Kayaking's bi-monthly newsletter by video. So this is what we're going to do to standardize all of our videos rather than having lots of sort of hodgepodge communication and update and review videos. This is it, okay? So we've got a nice little banner. This is kind of just, you know, it is episode 1 of series 1. So we've put together a little banner, and it may change, it probably will change over time. My face is a bit in shadow because it's a bright sunny day, and which is fantastic. It's nice and warm, perfect day for this. So what is Whisky Plank? Well, let me explain the name. It's very unusual, quite unusual, and that was the whole idea, that it was something different so that people would say exactly that. What is Whisky Plank? What does it mean? It doesn't really have to mean anything, but what it does mean is apparently the Whisky Plank, and I stand to be corrected, so if you've got any comments to make, you're welcome to give us feedback. But my understanding of Whisky Plank is the last plank that goes onto a ship when it's built. And usually once that's done, the Whisky Plank is inserted, then there's usually a big dance, bagpipes come out, and there's a big piss up. And I quite like that, because maybe I can relate to that a little bit, or we can relate to that a little bit. So we went with Whisky Plank. So I hope you like it. If you don't like it, tough. That's the name anyway. But again, give us some feedback. So what is Whisky Plank for? Well, Whisky Plank is for all of our customers, our existing customers, past customers, anyone that has bookings with us at the moment, all of our members, of course, and anybody who has or is thinking of booking with us. It gives you a sort of feel for the business and who we are and what we do, and feeds back as well. What are we going to be covering? Again, this is all kind of subject to, you know, it is flexible, it can change with time, but essentially what we're looking at is general interest, in terms of general interest kayaking, specifically sea kayaking. Event updates, so updates on our events, upcoming events, and new events. Q&A, questions and answers, so it gives you an opportunity to send in a question or questions. We'll pick some questions and give you the answer to those questions. And then I think probably following on at some point there will be competitions, giveaways, prize draws, that sort of thing. I've got a feeling that's going to come and work its way in. We're going to do some interviews, so there'll be interviews with staff that work at Nomad Sea Kayaking. There'll be interviews with guides that work with Nomad Sea Kayaking, and there'll be interviews with suppliers and people from outside of our business, from similar companies like us, Sea Kayaking UK, for example, Sea Kayaking Cornwall perhaps, so maybe some of the companies further north as well. We'll see what we can put together. It is very much a work in progress. So if you've got people that you would like us to interview, then let us know and we'll try and make it happen. Tips and ideas. So again, some handy tips for paddlers. It could be anything from, you know, tips on your gear to looking out for your boat, skills, general interest, anything kayak related, kayaking equipment related. And then last but not least, we've got our not-for-profit business as well. I call it a business, it's really a charity, but technically it's not a charity, it's called a not-for-profit because they're two different things, but essentially does the same thing. It does good work in the environment for the local community without taking payment. So there's no profit, there's no dividends, there's no bonuses paid to anybody. We're not doing it for money. We're doing it because we want to put something back into the environment. It's very important to us, which we've been doing for the past 16 years anyway, but now we have a vehicle to do the work. And Rebecca will give us an update on community projects because there is a lot happening. Right, so general interest. First one, I saw an interesting story this morning about an American in Tampa, Florida. I haven't been to Florida, but from what I've seen of it, it's beautiful, warm waters, shallow, and lots of big things and small things that can bite you. And there was an interesting story of these guys that were on sit-on-top kayaks in an estuary fishing, and a bull shark, otherwise known as a tiger shark, came swimming past them. Now, this video is on YouTube. It was a pretty big bull shark, as bull sharks go. It's probably as big as they get, in my experience anyway. And it was about 11 feet. So I'm 6 foot tall. You know, if you double me up, take off about a foot, and there you've got the size of the shark. So it was pretty big. It wasn't that much smaller than the guy's kayak. And this thing came past. They thought it was a big joke, but this thing really was quite threatening. It was coming up and kind of spy hopping, which is something that sharks do. They come above the waterline and they look at you and they basically check you out and try and get an idea of whether you're a threat or whether you're a meal. And the next step would then be come along and take a little bite, a little tester bite, to see if you're edible or not. And I laughed about this because this big thing was made in the news about it and was on the internet. And I laughed because being a Durbanite from Durban in South Africa, when I was a kid, you know, from sort of 11, 12, all the way through to 15, 16, we used to go fishing off skiffs, which were like homemade, big fiberglass, kind of sit on tops. Had a box in the center where you'd put all your fishing tackle in, and you'd sit on top of the box and you'd take your paddle, you and your mate in front, and you'd paddle out, right out, way past the shark nets. So there's no defense against sharks, and sit there and then fish. So these sharks would come in and they'd get closer and closer to the boat, and you know, the old kind of stories of hearing sharks circling you, you know, and literally they would just be coming around, checking you out, and eventually the idea was that they'd come in and have a little nudge or take a little bite. And I'd never had a bull shark take a bite of my kayak, but I know of ski boats which are pretty big, probably about 20-foot boats, something like that, probably about 20-foot boats, fishing boats that we use in South Africa to break through the surf and go out into deep water and fish. And I know of tiger sharks that have clamped onto the front of the boat, and when the guys looked over the front of the bow of the boat, there's a big tiger shark clamped onto the front of the boat, shaking the boat, like a bit like a dog worrying his teddy toy or something like that. So that sort of behavior is pretty common. Now fortunately, oh, and one other thing, in South Africa, and I suppose Africa in general, the estuaries are prime location for sharks, and for anything that's going to bite you, sting you, eat you, kill you, destroy you, they tend to be the mouth of estuaries, and that includes crocs, because crocodiles will swim from freshwater into saltwater and back again and make a transition, and stingrays, big stingrays, and of course sharks. Mouths of estuaries are breeding areas for all of these different species because the water's warm, it's shallow, and I suppose there's hiding places away from predators as well. Here in the UK, we do a lot of paddling in estuaries, and the good news is it's not a problem that we have. We don't tend to find the mouth of estuaries that there are, you know, an accumulation of certain species that are going to hurt us, particularly shark. We have something like 16 species of shark in the UK, and none of them bite. Okay, so there's nothing to worry about. A lot of estuaries too, in the UK, there tends to be a lot of flow at the mouth of the estuary, a lot of shoals and stuff going on, and so we don't tend to get sharks and the like at the mouth of estuaries. So there's nothing in the water that's going to hurt us. But it did get my attention. It was an interesting story, and you know, sharks buzzing boats of all kinds, including kayaks, in warm tropical waters is not uncommon. We'll talk a little bit about COVID. I'm going to touch very quickly on COVID. Currently, today being the 29th of March, it's Monday. This is like the big date that people can mix outdoors now. I think it's 2 households in an outdoor location. We're not back to work, and that's simply because we work on the rule of 6, and the limitation currently on the rule of 6 is that it can only be from 2 households. So if we've got, say, 10 bookings for an event, and those 10 bookings are across 4 or 5 households, we can't take all of those people. We can only take 2 people or 3 people or anything up to 6, but only from 2 households. So that's just not going to work for us. So our opening date for operations, for our trips and for our courses is the 12th of April. Our first event is our introduction to kayaking course, which is the most popular course that we have, and that goes out on the 17th of April, and it's fully booked at the moment. So 17th of April is when we're flat out, okay? And when I say flat out, I mean every weekend we're on the water. If you want places, get in there fast and book. The lead time is about 6 weeks out, okay? Some events are booked up way in advance of that 6 weeks, but generally it's about 6 weeks. So make sure you get in there. With COVID, we're doing exactly what we did last year. All the guides will be wearing masks. You're welcome to wear masks as well. As a matter of fact, you have to wear masks. It's a legal requirement, so please bring your masks on and make sure you use them. You are going to be in a small rule of 6 little group, so that will be 5 guests and 1 guide. Stick to your little bubble, to your group. Don't mix with other groups or other groups of people, the public and so forth. Stick to your group. Maintain your social distancing. That is on you. That is your responsibility, okay? We can't do that for you. You're all adults. We treat you like adults, so make sure, please, mask on. When you get on the water, you take your mask off, keep your distance from people, and when you get off the water, you put your mask back on again. Please keep your social distancing, no physical contact, just the stuff that we've been doing all along. All of the kayaks are always washed. The whole fleet gets washed after every event, including all the paddles and the buoyancy aid, so that's never been a problem. And we will continue disinfecting all of the kayaks, the buoyancy aids and the paddles, and we disinfect everywhere where you're going to touch: the handles, the drainage plug at the front of the kayak, the seat, the adjuster, any adjusters on the kayaks, all of the hatch covers are disinfected, okay? Same thing on the buoyancy aid, and of course on the paddle, it's the whole shaft that gets disinfected. Each guide will have, and there's usually on average per event, there's usually about 3 guides, one of which is the lead guide, and each one of those guides will have their own bottle of disinfectant, okay, which is a bio-friendly, ocean-safe disinfectant, so it's completely safe for the environment. We also have hand sanitizer on site as well. Each guide will have, well, there'll be 1 big bottle of hand sanitizer at that event. So if you need to use it, please, you feel free to do so. Just ask your guide and they'll give you some directions. But make sure you've got your own stuff with you and use it as well. Okay, and a final point on COVID is all of our guides thus far that are confirmed for work for this season, for the 2021 season, have had their first inoculation. Okay, so that tells you a little bit about the average age of our guides, but everybody thus far has had their first inoculation, and by the time we're into the season proper, by April, half of them will have had the second jab, and the rest will be following very, very close. Certainly by mid-May, everybody will have had 2 jabs, which is really, really good. We're really pleased about that. So the next thing we're going to look at are the event updates. We have had to drop certainly one of our events, which is the kayaking taster session. It's a real pity because it's a great little event. The idea was that it's a nice cheap event. You get a good quality kayak with a seat, and you can come down with young kids and go out into a safe area and paddle in your own free time, and it's nice and cheap as well. And we were doing a reduced ticket for families, so if you bought 3, 4, up to 4 people, you got quite a big discount on that seat. But we've had to drop it because we just haven't had enough uptake, which is I suppose indicative. It actually shows that a lot of parents are just not getting their kids out and participating in these events. They've all been there and they've been there for years, but people are just not taking them up. So we've dropped it, okay? So that's the taster session and the family session, which is pretty much the same thing. Those 2 events have been dropped, and of course that's also the reduced family ticket that's gone as well. So your loss, our loss, but if people are not using it, we're not going to provide it. It just doesn't make sense. So we've dropped that. The introduction to kayaking course, which is our most popular course, has been moved to Wolverstone Marina, primarily because we get better facilities there. Parking is free of charge. B, there's plenty of parking. C, The food facilities are very, very good. There's a very good restaurant, indoor and outdoor, with a good bar. So if afterwards you want to have a meal and have a drink, you can do so. And the toilet facilities are fantastic. They are really, really 5-star. We've got a good launch on a slipway as well, and we've got a lovely area to cover off our theory kit and all the other bits and pieces that we do. So all in all, it is just a much better facility. So we've really just upgraded the introduction to kayaking. Very popular course. Our first course on the 17th, as I said, is fully booked. So check out the website, get in there, because the places are booking up quickly. The next course is in May, and I know we took 4 bookings this weekend, last night and this morning, for that course alone. So you want to get in fairly quick. The night trip to the seal colony, that's something that we brought out last year, I think it was. A very unique event. We only had one event running, and that's because it's very difficult to get the right tide on a full moon, or as close to a full moon as we can get. The reason we want a full moon is because it's just beautiful. We want that lovely visibility and that big spotlight that's on everything, and the moonlight reflecting off the sea. It's an absolutely fantastic, surreal experience. But we need the tides with us. So the way we run all of our events is that we don't want our customers battling against the tide when they're paddling. When we go out, we paddle with the tide behind us, so the tide has to flood, it has to come in. And when we get to the top point where the seals are, the tide has to turn so that we can paddle back out with the tide to make it a lot easier for us. And trying to get that full moon with a date that's on a weekend that people can make and that's going to match up with the tides has been impossible for this year. So that event won't happen this year. Hopefully it should happen next year. But just the reason I'm mentioning it is because it's such a unique event and it doesn't come up often. When it does come up, you want to get in, and because there'll only be one event, that's it, okay? At the most, we might run 2 groups kind of back to back, one behind the other. We could do something like that based on demand, okay? We've brought out a new event, a new trip for beginners, for beginner paddlers and new entrants, people that have never paddled before, and it's called the Explore Kayaking trip. It launches on, the first event launches on the 30th of May. You can book on the website, and it launches from just outside the Ramsholt Arms pub in Suffolk. So it launches into the top end of the Deben, well, it's actually not the top end, it's kind of about halfway up the Deben estuary. Beautiful, pristine area. We do have seals in that area, lots of bird life as well, and it's a lovely little paddle off the beach, out a kind of circular paddle up into the little estuaries, and then back around again. We land up on a beach at the halfway point and then come back to finish at the Ramsholt Arms, where you can then go and get yourself a meal and a drink. The food is, I believe, it's been a long time since I've eaten there, but one of my colleagues knows the owners quite well and claims that the food is very, very good. So we recommend it until we're told otherwise. So that's the Explore Kayaking trip. And then finally, the member trips. So every year we run exclusive events for our members. And just so for those of you that don't know, we're not a club. Our membership is just purely people who pay a monthly premium on a 1-year contract. And for that premium, they can then book events online without having to pay the full retail price. So if you're an Infinity Combo member or a premium member, which is our top membership, you can pay your premium each month for 1 year, and you can book any trip and any event on the website as many times as you want through that year, okay? And every year we run member exclusive events. This year, because of COVID, our winter sea kayaking trip is kind of not a winter sea kayaking trip because we've had to put it back and put it back and put it back. I think we've rescheduled it 3 times thanks to COVID. But it is running, and you can book online. So members, if you haven't booked that yet, there are member seats, get in there. And then we've also got the Discover the Deben trip as well. So that goes on sit-on tops and sea kayaks and touring kayaks, and it goes up the Deben. Nice, easy trip with the tide behind us, turning around with the tide coming back again. In this episode, we are going to do an interview. We're going to do it with a member of our staff, Rebecca McInnes Clark. She joined us about 3 years ago as the sales and marketing manager and we'll throw a few questions at her and see what she comes back with. Rebecca McInnes-Clark, Sales and Marketing Manager. I'm kind of answering your first question for you, but the first question is, what is your role at NSK, and can you sort of give us a brief description of it? What do you do?
Okay, I do the sales and marketing for Nomad Sea Kayaking, and I'm also the funding manager for Nomad Community Projects as well. I'm very lucky to be able to work across both roles, and then I also am training to become a guide as well. So I will also be found on the water on the weekends and sometimes during the week, as well as in the office doing our social media, our event updates and various other things to do with selling all of our trips and courses.
Cool. How's your guide work going? How's the training going?
It's going well. I need to nail my roles this year though.
Okay.
It's one of my priorities this year, just to make sure that I can get those. Not because I necessarily need them for the guide work, but because I just want to be able to roll my kayak, quite frankly.
There's a bit of competition going on there, right?
A little bit.
Bit of competitive spirit. Good. Okay, so what is your background, and how did you sort of come into this field?
I started out years ago in the outdoor events industry, and slowly moved into sales and marketing. I've worked for some big national and international companies in sales, and really felt that I wasn't making enough of an impact, and certainly not the kind of impact that we can make at Nomad Sea Kayaking. I have a little bit more autonomy, I guess, but it also means that we can really make a difference, and ideas are shared, and we can actually do what we want to do instead of getting it signed off by 17 different people above us in management levels.
Yeah, I get that. I've before we started this company 16, 17 years ago, actually longer than that now, almost 20 years ago, I worked for big corporates, and I know the feeling. Even when I was in the military and you wanted to get a pencil, you had to fill in a form, right? It's a pain.
Yep.
Okay, so what do you enjoy about working at NSK other than working with the wonderful staff?
Well,
people like myself.
I also love orange.
Yeah. We are quite prominent with that, aren't we?
We are very prominent. We need to be. I enjoy the fact that we're doing what we want to do. We can make a difference. We're reaching lots of different people, and we're doing what we love. We're outdoors. We are getting out into the fresh air, and we are inspiring other people to join us. And especially since COVID, actually it's even more important for everyone, and just learning new skills, staying fit, being in the fresh air, and actually doing something good for yourself, taking time for yourself, and that is so important, and never more so than now.
There's a lot of stress, isn't there? A lot of mental health, and people putting on weight, and drinking's a problem, and not everyone, but I think we all recognise that these are issues, and I think these are going to probably stick with us for a long time to come, right?
I think so. And people need to find these outlets, and need to find ways that they can just relax and they can chill. And there's nothing better than starting a new sport or a new hobby, and why not it be kayaking? Yeah,
roger that. Amen to that. Well, Rebecca, thank you very much. As always, it has been a pleasure. And thank you. I think we're going to be handing over to you soon to give a little bit of an update on the community projects side of things. Cool. Thank you so much. Cool. The way he looks at you too, what's she doing? Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is talk about tip of the month. So the tip for this month, because we're at the end of March, is really the obvious thing, which is service your kayak, service your equipment. Servicing your kayak means get it out. Your hatches should have been open so that you've got good airflow when you're storing your kayak. Make sure you've got no algae growing on the inside of your kayak. Just wipe it out with a warm soapy cloth, and then get everything to air through. Check all of your deck lines, very important. Look for any damage to your deck lines, because when you're holding your kayak in rough seas or just doing basic recoveries, a lot of pressure is put onto those deck lines, and that's when they'll snap, okay? Also check the RDS, the recessed deck fittings. Make sure they're not cracked and there's no damage, and that they're tight enough as well. Don't over tighten them, but make sure you just lock them off. Otherwise, what happens is they tend to pop out and then you've got no deck lines. Front and rear toggles, have a look at those too. Make sure there's no rot, because they are notorious for breaking. And then just give your boat a bit of a clean, wipe it down, clean it, make it look nice. Equipment, check your tow system, pull all your line out, clip it on somewhere, check the carabiner, lube the carabiner. Don't use WD-40, use silicone oil. Silicone oil is more expensive, but it doesn't collect all the dirt, and it does a good job of lubricating. And you should be lubricating your carabiners after every single use. So once you've rinsed it, your gear, you've dried it, you put a little bit of silicone oil into all of your carabiners. Check the line as well, the floating line, the actual tow line itself. Look for nicks. Make sure there's no knots in the line. If there's a knot, take it out, okay? Knots are particularly dangerous on lines, particularly when they're under tension and they're in flowing water. And then just make sure all of the webbing is in good condition. Dry suits, your seals on your wrists, around your neck, get your dry suits serviced. Look out for any nicks and any damage. Check the zip, lube the zip up. And just go through all of your gear and make sure that everything that you need is working. Your VHF radios, your flares. Your flares you can't test unless you use them, but a little bit of Vaseline on the trigger mechanism will help to keep corrosion at bay as well. If they've got caps, make sure the caps are screwed up tightly. Put a little bit of Vaseline on the inside of the O-ring on the caps, okay? If you use laser flares, same thing. They'll usually have a little protective cap on them. Take them off, give them a little wipe, take the batteries out. Through winter, when you're not using this equipment, you should always take the batteries out anyway, but make sure the batteries are fully charged and are clean, and then lube up the little O-ring on the insert at the back of the battery compartment. Just a bit of Vaseline will be fine, or silicone grease works well too. There's a whole bunch of things that you can do with servicing, but really just go through all of your equipment, lay it all out, and just check it. Just check everything. That's the tip. Check everything and service where you need to. Okay, time for Q&A. So questions and answers. We invite everyone to send in questions, and we'll then answer them, or somebody in Nomad Sea Kayaking will answer the question for you. You can send in questions via our email, which is adventure@nomadseakayaking.co.uk, and I'll stick it up in the top corner of the screen. adventure@nomadseakayaking.co.uk. I hope this is working. Or you can go onto our Facebook page and you can just put the question in to onto our Facebook page, Nomad Sea Kayaking. But there's always a risk that we might miss that. So if you send in an email with your question, it's guaranteed to get through. Okay, and depending on how many questions we get, we will try to get through everybody if we can. But we'll let you know how that works. So the question that we got for this month is from S. Templeton in Norfolk. I don't know if S is a lady or a bloke or what, but their question, it was a lot longer than this, but I kind of shortened it down. And the question is, when should I buy my first kayak? And our opinion is as soon as possible. Don't go out and buy a kayak until you've actually tried it. So come out and do a course, whether it's with us or someone else, local to you. Go out and do an introduction to kayaking course that'll give you a good taste of the basic skills that are needed to manage your kayak. It should give you a introduction to doing a basic recovery and assisted recovery, so you get in the water. And a lot of people don't understand that they've got a fear of deep water or some sort of phobia connected with water until they get in, or until you ask them to capsize, and then they go, oh, hang on, something's not right here, I don't really fancy this. So do a basic course first, and then once you realize, okay, this is the sport for me, I really like this, this is what I want to do, then go out and buy a kayak, okay? And the reason for that is because training courses are not going to teach you how to kayak. They will introduce you to the basic skills, but it's down to you to get out in the water and build up that experience, developing and cementing the skills that you learned in your course. that cementing and that learning takes place when you're out in the water implementing the skills that you learned in the course. And there's no substitute for experience. So that's why we would say to you, buy a kayak. As soon as you've done your initial course, your kind of introduction to kayaking, got a taste for it, and you like it, you tick that box, then buy yourself a kayak. What type of kayak? Well, that's another question, but just generally in that course, you should get a good idea of the different types of kayaks that are out there and what is going to suit the type of kayaking you want to do. And then the final thing I would say is, you know, how do you buy one? Be careful when you go retail. There are a lot of people out there who they're selling, and they're not going to sell the boat that meets your requirements. And we see it all the time, in particular with paddles. We've got retailers out there selling 220s and 224s, 225s, paddles that are really, really long and completely overpriced for your needs. The paddle you need is a 215, really cheap, little Carlisle paddle that should cost you no more than 60 or 70 pounds, and even that is frankly quite overpriced. So if you want advice, email us at adventure@nomadseakayaking.co.uk. Again, it's up on the top of the screen, or you can ring us on our telephone number, again at the top of the screen, or you can contact us through social media, Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram. We are out there. Okay, there's loads of ways that you can contact us. The easiest and quickest way is give us a call, and then we can answer your question directly, as opposed to waiting for an email. Email is always a lot slower. Okay, so just to be clear again, if you've got a question for the Q&A for Whisky Plank, just send it through by email. My question for Whisky Plank is X, and then we will put it onto our video, and we'll answer that question via our Whisky Plank through this forum. If you're looking for a boat or to buy a paddle and you just want general advice, again, just contact us. Telephone, email, any of those things, and then we can just give you general advice over the telephone. That's not a problem, but just wanted to distinguish between those two things. Okay, last but not least, I'm going to hand over very quickly to Rebecca, who's going to give us an update on progress with the Nomad community projects, there's a lot going on, very, very exciting. So I'll hand over to Rebecca.
Right, Nomad Community Projects. We're very, very excited to be running Nomad Community Projects, and it runs hand in hand with our sister company, Nomad Sea Kayaking. So last year we were awarded our first grant, and that was so that we could run beach cleans by kayak. Now this was in conjunction with the Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty down on the Suffolk coast. We have always beach cleaned, and it made sense to be able to actually have a vehicle that we could do some good, get some funding, and be able to actually have a load more beach cleans, so that we've actually got, we can subsidise the seats and be able to run these events without actually costing us, Nomad Sea Kayaking, a lot of money, because we just want to do good and we want to get people out. And we want to enthuse people to join us without having to be out of pocket when they do so, or feeling they're out of pocket. Now, this year, we will be doing some more beach cleans, but we are also expanding what we're doing. So as part of our offsetting of carbon, we know that as an industry, as a planet, we have to do good for the world. And one of the things that we're doing is we are planting trees. And we are very excited to announce that we've actually been awarded 420 trees from the Woodland Trust for us to be able to plant this year, and they are arriving in about 4 weeks. So that's the first very exciting bit of news. The second bit of exciting news is, while we would be planting these in the community in various different places, we also are in the final stages of securing a plot of land that we will be able to manage, and we will be able to develop environmentally for the community and plant more trees. We are looking at doing some rewilding on it, and some really exciting future projects. But right now, check out our website. When you're booking any trips with us, you have the opportunity to be able to donate to Nomad Community Projects. Nomad Community Projects is a CIC, which is a community interest company. It is a not-for-profit, and any money that goes into the CIC has to be spent on good projects. Every penny is accounted for, and that is why we've done it, to make sure that people will be enthused to join us, and know that every penny that they either donate to us or spend on events with us actually goes into the environment and into doing good work. I hope you will join us. Check out our website and make sure that you're up to date with everything we do. And there are going to be some changes on our website soon, so do check them out and you will see the changes as they come through. We're looking forward to seeing you on one of our beach cleans, or why not come and plant a tree with us?
Okay, so that's it for episode 1 of series 1 of the Whisky Plank for Nomad Sea Kayaking. I hope you enjoyed it. Give us some feedback and any material that we can use, trips that you've done and that you've experienced, or any tips that you've got, or if you've got some questions, just get them across to us and we'll get you onto our Whisky Plank series. I hope you enjoyed it. Feedback is always welcome. You know where we are. We'll see you all from the 17th of April onwards, and we look forward to seeing you out in the water soon. Nomad out.